morning. My name is Winston Abascal. I am the director of the International Center of Cooperation for Tobacco Control of the Ministry of Public Health in Uruguay. As an exchange, a knowledge exchange center for the Framework Convention of the WHO. It's really a pleasure to speak to you from Uruguay. In the first instance, we are going to address the meaning of the convention, of the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control. And in the first place, we should see the problem that the convention wishes to resolve. We are working with an epidemic, the situation of epidemic, an addictive substance as tobacco is. It's the largest pandemic in the 20th century, so there was a need to make some measures, or take measures. Probably 6 million people die every year as a result of the use of tobacco, and is closely related to cancer, respiratory diseases, and cardiopathies. That means to say non-communicable diseases. In view of this situation, the epidemic has evolved in different manners in developed countries and in developing countries. As you will see on the chart, in the year 65, the deaths provoked by tobacco, or the number of deaths, were higher in the developed countries. But now you see that the developing countries in 2025, it is prospected the situation of the highest rate of mortality in developing countries when we compare with developed countries. And this is related to non-communicable diseases that cause 40 million deaths per year, which are being produced in less developed countries. Therefore, the use of tobacco is the main cause that we can prevent of disease and death. At the end of the 90s, many countries were concerned with this situation, and they decided within the WHO to have a discussion forum, and all the member countries participated in the discussions regarding a text, an agreement for a convention, a framework convention for tobacco control. In 2003, in May 2003, the framework convention of the WHO for tobacco control was approved, and it came into force in February 2005. It is compulsory for party states, and they had to work in their parliaments to obtain ratification and deposit in the instruments at the United Nations. When there were 40 party countries that ratified the country, the treaty came into force. And at present, in the year 2017, 180 countries are party states to this treaty. And the organizations of regional economic integration also participate. once they have presented the adhesion instruments to the treaty. The treaty has an organ, which is the Conference of the Parties, gathering all the states, 180 states, and they have periodical meetings. And one of the party states is the venue. The next meeting will take place in 2018. It will take place in Geneva, in Switzerland. Between these sessions and these discussions of the party conferences, there is a bureau with representatives of each one of the 6 regions of the WHO. They also gather periodically, and every 2 years, as we know, we have the meeting of all the party states. They address the topics that have been pending since the main conferences of the parties. And they have a permanent secretariat and is in charge of developing and implementing the measures approved in the conference of the party states, in addition to advising the countries on protection of the party states. They also have administrative duties, budgetary duties, in order to make the treaty effective. The Conference of the Parties establish knowledge hubs that exchange knowledge about the treaty. And there are different in the several regions, and one of them is in the Americas, helping the countries to implement the measures and study and research the tobacco epidemic, and also to compile information, summarizing it and disseminating the information throughout party states. The Center of Cooperation is in Uruguay and serves all the Americas. The main measures of the treaty is a route map for implementing the treaty, with the most efficient measures that have been prepared in order to reduce the epidemic. For example, the increase of taxes, 100% free smoke areas, also regarding labeling, and the total prohibition of advertising, promotion, and sponsorship of tobacco products, and also the treatment of those who are dependent, and the fight against illicit trade of tobacco products, in addition to others. Regarding the fight against illicit trade, there is a protocol for the elimination, for the removal of illicit trade of tobacco products, and will come into force with the ratifications of party states number 40. That means to say is that the countries are discussing in their parliaments and congresses, and once they ratify it, and when they get 40 ratifications, the protocol will come into force. And it is hoped that in the next meeting of the party conference, that will be in 2018 in Geneva, as we said, the protocol will be accepted, having the first meeting of the party states to the protocol. The situation of the implementation of the convention in the Americas, we see that the 30 of the 35 countries of the Americas region are party states to the convention. Only 5 countries have not ratified it yet. There have been advances and progress in the region to the extent that more than 50% of the population of the region is protected in smoke-free areas, and regarding labeling procedures. However, as regards the promotion and advertising, only 25% of the population have achieved this type of control. Now that you have a view on the treaty, what it's all about, and about the Secretariat and the administration of the treaty and the protocol, and the center of knowledge hubs, and the measures that were more important in the treaty. I would also like to mention about a court case when Philip Morris, the company, sued Uruguay before the International Center of Differences regarding investment. It started in February 2010, and the sentence was given in July 2016. It was a 6-year discussion process between the plaintiff and the arguments presented by both parties. Philip Morris said they alleged that the bilateral treaty on the protection on investment between Uruguay and Switzerland of the year 1999 had been infringed by Uruguay in view of 2 measures by Uruguay: the health warnings, 80%, and the requirement for the unique presentation by label. Because in the framework treaty there were some measures that the countries had to apply. Tobacco in our countries, although it is illicit trade, it doesn't mean that it is any kind of merchandise. As tobacco is a merchandise whose use provokes disease, the state has to regulate the trade of tobacco by consumers. So for that reason, Philip Morris filed suit against the Uruguay because of the sanitary warnings and also the requirement of the sole presentation by treatment. That means to say that in Uruguay the variances of trademark or label are prohibited. There's only one variance that is allowed to use. This applies to any tobacco company. That means to say 1 presentation per label, and that is why Uruguay was sued. Which were the aspects of the initial brief? First of all, expropriation. Philip Morris said that the intellectual property rights had been infringed, that there was a negative to provide equitable and fair treaty to the company and to the use of tobacco. In the other hand, there was the privation of justice. After 6.5 years, as we said, the court issued the sentence. The court didn't accept the claims presented by Philip Morris, and condemned Philip Morris to pay the costs of Uruguay's and the costs of the action. There are some fundamental elements in the decision which give us a light on the aspects on public health and the rights of trade. There are some problems in these areas. For example, in the opinion of the court, the adoption of the measures by Uruguay was a valid exercise of the power of police, power of control of the states. The measures that were attacked by Philip Morris were adopted according to the national and international obligations of Uruguay for the protection of public health. So it is the right of the state to enforce the protection to the health of the people as an important human right. And that means to say that the state adopted those measures against the use of tobacco in view of the national and international obligations of the country. In addition, among other fundamental elements, the court said that the manufacturers and distributors of nocive products such as cigars cannot expect to be free from regulations new and more costly, that are new and more costly. So the new and costly regulation must be expected for all those who distribute or market or nocive products. In the light of all these accepted articulations on the international concert about the effects of tobacco, the expectations could only be to have a regulation which becomes more and more strict and rigid regarding the sale and the use of tobacco products. This is very important for the party states, for them to know the opinion of the court in this specific aspect. Unasur, in Unasur, we have an important opportunity to work together in order to agree on actions to transmit the experience of all the countries in areas related to the use and consumption of tobacco and the enforcement of the Framework Convention. This is an opportunity, we must make good use of it, and there is scientific knowledge that supports, and also supported by the treaty, there is a reason of the state that all the countries have to protect the health of the population and the people living in the territory. This is a fundamental human right, and the state is responsible for taking care. That is why I am mentioning this in my presentation. There is a process to give priority to the protection of public health, and it is our responsibility to apply the measures of the treaty. And our states have decided to ratify it. There are millions of people that are expecting all the measures that we may take, because we know we have the scientific knowledge, we have international treaties that, in this case, for example, was ratified, and we have also the obligation, again, of protecting the right to health of the people living in our countries. This is very important, because we must apply the measures included in the treaty and provide advice, transmit experiences, and make good use of all the opportunities of the people working in this area in order to disseminate. This is all that I wanted to mention, and I wanted to thank you for the opportunity for commenting all these issues. Thank you very much.